Hi, welcome back, anatomy students. Hopefully you are excited for another new year of learning. In this lecture, we are going to just talk about some features or processes that all complex organisms need in order to survive. We're going to list all 8 of them here, and then we'll talk about each one individually on separate slides. So our body needs boundaries, movement, responsiveness, metabolism, digestion, elimination, reproduction, and growth. And you maybe can make up a mnemonic device that'll help you remember that list of 8. Maybe it's a word that has each letter, the first letter of each word in it, or maybe it's a sentence where you use the first letter, like big muscles respond. I don't know. So you could come up with a mnemonic device that'll help you remember that. And then we're going to talk about each slide. So this is the boundaries. So you might think that we need boundaries kind of at every level of our organization. We have boundaries on our cells. So you're familiar with the cell membrane that keeps things in and keeps other things out, right? And material has to move across those membranes. We also have membranes around our tissues and our organs, and then around our entire body. So like your periosteum, that goes around the outside of the bones. So that is a boundary for the bones, keeping it all compact. Your heart has a boundary inside and outside, so keeping the fluid separate from the muscle tissue itself, you have the endocardium on the inside, and then containing the heart, you have the epicardium on the outside. So even your organs have boundaries. And the integumentary system, you've already learned, is your skin, and so the skin is our ultimate boundary, keeping pathogens outside of our body and protecting us from infections. So again, we want to think a little bit broader than you might originally think. So movement, you're like, oh, I run, I jump. But also things need to be able to move inside of our body. So propelling ourselves from one place to another would be one example, just running, manipulating our environment. So I need to be able to grab dry erase markers, not always, but we need to be able to move within our environment, right, and move things around in our environment, and then also inside of our body. So you have smooth muscle that is like squeezing and pushing, and it's moving material through, say, your digestive system. So that would be one example of propelling substances through our internal organs. Okay, so we need responsiveness. And again, you're thinking outside of your body, probably the light turns red and you stop, or the light turns green and you go, the light is down and we put our heads on the desk back in elementary school. But responsiveness, another term for that is irritability. So the ability to respond to stimuli. So yes, we have to respond to the stimuli outside of our body, but more, we need our cells responding to stimuli inside our body. So that keeps our bodies functioning properly. So you're probably right away thinking of the nervous system, and nerves are sending signals between other nerves and they're talking to your cells. You also have your endocrine system that's sending hormones through the bloodstream, and it's targeting organs to tell organs what to do. So so your body is responding to stimuli at the very cellular level, as well as then an outward expression of that. All bodies need to be able to digest ingested food. We need to be able to break it down. So digestion is a chemical process, simply breaking large molecules into smaller molecules. And then in our small intestines, we're able to absorb those smaller molecules and use them to synthesize other tissues. So we can make more proteins, or we can make complex carbohydrates that we can store in our muscles and in our liver. So in our mouth, we break down like complex carbohydrates into smaller disaccharides, perhaps. In our stomach, we start to break down large proteins into like dipeptides. Fatty acids get broken down into smaller components as well. And then in your small intestine, you further break those dyes down into single molecules. So you break down a disaccharide into a monosaccharide, and you break down a dipeptide into an amino acid, which is then absorbed through the bloodstream and used wherever it is needed. So digestion is a chemical reaction of breaking molecules down. So this is metabolism. Metabolism can be complex, to think about, or you can just simply think it's the sum total of all chemical reactions in your body. So we were just talking about digestion, which is a catabolic reaction. It's breaking things down. You might remember you learned about cellular respiration in biology. This is a very complex version of that cellular respiration. In the Krebs cycle, fatty acids can go in, amino acids can go in, nucleotides can go in. We typically only think about glucose going into the Krebs cycle and then releasing energy. Well, actually, it's not even glucose, right? We talk about glucose breaking down into pyruvate into acetyl-CoA. But anyways, all of the foods that you eat, all of the macromolecules that we take in will enter into that process. So anyways, catabolic reactions break things down. So I think of a catastrophe destroys things. And then anabolic reactions build things up. So that's synthesizing. So not that photosynthesis is happening inside of us, but we learned that in biology, and that was a synthesizing reaction. So when we take those amino acids and we build larger proteins, or we take those glucose molecules and we build glycogen, those would be examples of anabolic reactions. So metabolism is the sum of the two, catabolic versus anabolic. So if you have more anabolic than catabolic, the body is building, right? And if you have more catabolic than anabolic, as will happen as you age, then the body starts to break down. So going along with that metabolism and digestion, then you have excretion. Excretion, we have to get rid of non-useful substances. And again, that's more than just the whole organism, but cells need to get rid of unused substances. You have macrophages inside your body, white blood cells that are engulfing bacteria, right? They're not going to just store up the bacteria, they have to get rid of it as well. So they're going to expel their waste products as well. We typically think of kidneys as our excretory organs, and they're going to eliminate waste like too much salt or too much water or too much hydrogen from acids. So that would be an example of excretion. We need reproduction both at the cellular level and the organismal level. So here we have cartilage cells. So your whole body started out as a cartilage skeleton. And then that cartilage is replaced by bone over time. So these are chondrocytes, and they need to be able to divide, right, in order to make a mold that will become your body. So at the cellular level, we need reproduction occurring. Kind of scuffed my face this weekend, and so I'm going to need cellular repair in order to replace the cells that I lost. And that's going to happen through reproduction. And then, of course, in order for the species to continue as a whole, we need organismal reproduction. Not every single individual needs to reproduce, but we need individuals within the species to reproduce if we're going to survive. And then growth kind of goes with that metabolism concept. If we have more anabolism than we do catabolism, our body will be growing. And so that's what you're seeing here, both growth and development. Development has to do with change. And then this graphic over on the left with the heart, this is what I was talking about with, we have more cellular growth when we're young, and you can see that on the left-hand side of those graphs. So a quick increase there, and then you can see that the line is decreasing over time. So both cellular replacement and the number of cells over time will decrease as one gets older. So those are the 8 necessary life functions for complex organisms. You should be able to list them, and I think it's good to know that you have a number, right? So if I get to 5 and I know I have to remember 8, I know that there's 3 more to go, but if I don't tell myself a number, I just start listing and I don't know if I've reached the end. So I think it's good to know how many you have to come up with. So be able to list those 8 necessary life functions, recognize examples of them, and perhaps be able to give examples. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening.